Welcome back to Supreme Fuzzler. We are beginning Tag Sail You're It, which is a wonderful episode in Season 1, Episode 10. I really do love this episode. It is brilliant. I also just want to say thank you for joining me on this little journey so far. We're getting close to the end of Season 1, which is awesome. I highly recommend this show if anyone is truly still debating about it at this point. And to follow along with me and AdultSwim.com and other such legal or whatever the heck means to get a hold of it. Or if you just have the DVDs. Or even if you don't have those things, there's a Venture Brothers Marathon that happens at AdultSwim.com that you can just watch the marathon of the series. And if you just catch it on the right day, you can maybe watch it from when you left off. And it's not really a bad series to kind of jump in here and there at. Although there are some continuity things that you might be confused about, or characters that are introduced that you would not know about. But still. Let's jump into the episode, though. We got a starting point, which is a guy talking to a group of agents about how this might be the hottest situation you've ever laid your eyes on. If any of you are having second thoughts, any of you are having issues with you imagining your best friend screwing your wife because you left her a widow, well, now's the time to leave. And a guy shows up, he's like, take off those sunglasses. And dude leaves, and he does, and he's like, get out of here. Mr. 5, see to it that Mr. 11 never makes it to that door alive. Then you hear him get shot with a silence gun, and And then they introduce Brock, who is apparently team leader for this mission, and how he is going to explain the situation. And Brock basically explains that they're going to be divided into groups, and that 2 agents per section, and then in the event of an agent's termination, the other area will be absorbed by the sort of neighboring agents. And then 2 people talk about how they don't like the way that termination sounds, and fucking the black guy, I hate to say it, the black agent, I guess is the best way to say it. Yeah, from an American agent. He comes up and is like, are you 2 having a tea party? And they're like, yes, it is a tea party, sir. Like, you want to dress up in two dresses and have a little tea party with everyone, sir? I mean, soldier? Yes, sir, I do. No, well, no, sir, I don't, sir. Team leader, do you want to see them in pretty mini skirts? No, I don't. You are lucky it's team leader in command. If it were up to me, all the lot of you would be in skirts. Such good lines, such good actions from these characters. Brock's a fun character. And then that guy backs off and is like, it's their nerves. It's getting to them. And then they're like, alright, go for it. And it shows Dean and Hank, who have a yard sale sign. And they're like, you got it, sir. And they just plop down the yard sale sign. And then it's the beginning of the episode. Intro rolls in. I really love this episode. It's one of the best episodes ever. I know I say that like basically every episode as we progress, but it's what makes this series great. Every episode has been getting better. Although there is a slight downgrade in Ice Station Impossible and then also Mr. Brisby, but it's like immediately like small dip, not even a small dip, just barely stagnated, I guess. It's one of those episodes where it just didn't get better. It's just the same caliber as the last episode. And then it just ups the ante again with Eeny Major Magic, goes to Sargasm, and then from Ice Station Impossible it was Are You There, God, Is Me, Dean, and Midlife Chrysalis, other way around. This episode, though, is fucking great. It is one of my personal favorites. I really love this episode. Like, beyond more testicular torsion, Midlife Chrysalis was an episode... Oh, sorry, not Midlife Chrysalis. Are You There, God, Is Me, Dean. Is an episode I remembered and really thought about a lot when I was young and thinking about this show and what kept me interested in the show. This episode is the episode that once I had watched the whole series a couple times, this was the episode that I was like, from here on, There is no bad episode. Even the next episode, which is not as good, I would say, as this episode, but still damn good. It's good, still damn good enough that there is nothing but not flawless, but perfectly great episodes from here on. And it's just non-stop amazing. Especially once we get past episode 11, the next episode. From then on, it's truly just nothing but good. Anyways, so after that part, we get after the intro, it comes into Monarch with the new Monarch, oh, not the new, but the old Monarch mobile. I always forget about it. It's a fucking van, and so they're driving down the road, and you hear 21 and 24 doing a debate, because 21 and 24 are just that type of characters. They're the henchmen of Monarch, if anyone doesn't remember. They are the best and his favorite henchmen, although I don't know about that for sure, but that's what I'd like to say. And they're arguing about, they're talking about how, like, this woman has killed before, allegedly. Well, still, a woman of small mental stability. Oh, you're underestimating the diehard feelings of a never say die survivor. Fucking, and Monarch chips in and is like, hey, no one cares who would win in a fantasy fist fight between Anne Frank and Lindsay Borden. Fucking amazing. So I never had until today looked up who Lindsay Borden is, because I just never thought about it. I just assumed another female historical figure, which technically yes, but I didn't realize that she was like a person who was tried but acquitted of killing her husband and her mother-in-law or her daughter. I can't remember the woman she killed or allegedly killed. And then she lived throughout the rest of her days in peace, even though she was ostracized by the village. But she was acquitted because there was no evidence, so it's hard to say. Anyways, hilarious. 21 and 24's interactions are fucking always great. Then you have Dr. Girlfriend, who's like, should I pull over? And, sorry, before Dr. Girlfriend does that, Monarch is like, we're going to be the only ones there with henchmen. We're going to have to kill them and dump their bodies. Look for a place to dump their bodies. And then Dr. Girlfriend's like, should I pull over, turn around, you know? Like, no, I'm not missing this. This tag sale is going to be the event, obviously. And we're going to go there. Ah, so good. And they finish it up with, like, Dr. Girlfriend being like, I don't want to upset the henchmen. They're such parent characters in regards to their henchmen, especially these episodes where they are the obvious, like, just henchmen are, unfortunately, the dumb, naive children that they are, while Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend kind of keep them in line, and, like, oh, should we have brought the kids, basically, is what this feels like. And maybe we were the only ones who brought the kids. We're going to have to dump them out of their bodies. We then go to Hank and Dean, which Dean brings out a doll that from his past, apparently, that he was not expecting Rusty to sell. And Hank makes fun of him because it's a doll, and about it's his doll. But Dean's like, no, it's an action figure. And then there's a point where he's like, well, no, he's trying to sell it. Like, he can't sell it. It's my Princess of Camelot doll. And then, like, the agents are looking at him, so he's like, because I should get the money. And Hank, who is brilliant, by the way, I love his character, and I love how he develops, and this is one of the best first showings of his character's greatness. Not the first, but whatever. So, he's like, we gotta get a slice of that fat money cake. Meanwhile, Dean finds a fucking mic, and, like, has it play music, because it's one of those types of old school toy mics that, you know, they can do mic stuff, but like those horns or whatever. Fuck, I can't remember words. And so he dances to that. Well, and then Hank's like, no, we gotta go. And then it cuts to Rusty, who's talking to Brock, and is like, Rusty's like, we got a lock on this lockbox. Don't worry about it. And Brock's like, you're just begging for trouble in here, Doc. Like, come on, that's why you guys got all your security people. I just think it's a little crazy with all your advertising. Well, that's why all your people are here. And then you're being extra paranoid. And fucking Brock makes a very good point. You got a sign over there that says Laser Death Ray Bargain Bin. It's so funny. Because truly, he's inviting issues. Granted, Rusty's not wrong. This is the point of Brock's group security forces. That's why they're there, assumably. That's why I was thinking about it. I was like, how could Rusty, who technically is kind of a wash-up, get such a large detachment of forces to his area? And I guess it's because it's such a, obviously going to be a hot spot. I was also thinking about how at the beginning they do a bunch of, really, it's like a left field turn thing, kind of thing. Because I forget, as a person who doesn't know what's about to happen, you almost think there's about to be something crazy cool that's about to happen, but it's a fucking yard sale. Because they have all that, like, this is the hottest moment and all that crap, and how this is gonna be, they kill, literally, Mr. 11 with Mr. 5 does, and it's like, damn. But no, it's just protecting the Venture compound during a yard sale, but apparently Venture's stuff is just that dangerous. It goes to the crowd, who is going through the door, which is an interesting little sight where you see the half of the scientist group, which like has Dr. Impossible, and although I don't think you can see him, Billy and White's over there. And then it shows the villain group, which interestingly has Orpheus at the front of them, even though he's technically on the hero side, but he's a magician and actually like a necromancer, so he kind of fits in the villain side almost. And Underbite, and another member of the villain group that we will know their importance later, and Monarch. Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend have a conversation about Depeche Mode and how the guy from Depeche Mode's over on the hero side, basically, and then they have how he's with a girl, and then how he's totally straight, and then how Dr. Girlfriend saw a documentary about him on the VH1. Really interestingly dates this show, although I think VH1 still exists. I don't have cable, so I don't know, but I think it does. I don't know if it does documentaries on musicians anymore, although that kind of seems to fit up its alley. Not music, but is music. And you kind of see some interesting interactions with this, because after the Depeche Mode thing, he goes to Billy and White. Billy is like, check out that girl over there, to Dr. Girlfriend, or White is, and Billy's like, oh, that's Dr. Girlfriend who's with the Monarch. I'm like, oh, that's Dr. Girlfriend. I've heard she's kind of manly. Like, oh yeah, but she's really a good looking girl still though, because yeah. And they have like a weird debate about whether or not that could have been, it's kind of fucked up, it's basically whether or not Dr. Girlfriend could have been done as a surgery, and how Billy's like, it's possible, but I don't think so, basically. And White's like, oh, you really think it's possible? And Billy's like, I once grafted a pony's face onto a famous celebrity's onto abdomen. And White is someone I know. I never kiss and tell. And then it goes to Underbite, who comes up to the door and is like, Brock's like, give me your name. And Underbite's, you damn well know, give me your name. And he's like, Baron Underbite. And I'm very well aware of the guild's charter of casual contact, which is another showing and talking about the guild acclaim this intent. And he's like, what would I want to do, and what would I gain from harming anyone? Of course, Brock's like, And so he goes to the metal detector, and he gave his keys and shit, but the metal detector, of course, still goes off. And he needs to take off his jaw. And he's like, is there a screen I can go behind? And Brock's like, don't push your luck. So he takes it off, and he's fucking... It's not as gross as you'd think. I've seen grosser in shows at this point, but it would be really disturbing if I saw that in real life. His whole jaw just slacks down, and like the tongue falls out, and he's like, bleh, and it's really like creepy and weird. You get a horrified face from Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend, although 21 apparently is cool with it in the back there. And they get through the door, though. Dr. Underbite does. They also, Dr. Girlfriend's like, I'm gonna throw up. I can feel it in the back of my throat. Oh god. And after the puking thing with Dr. Girlfriend, you see Monarch take off his wristband and subtly, sleight-of-handed slip it into an agent's pocket. I will say, Monarch is a brilliant bastard when it comes to getting what he wants. Like, he obviously knew how to get an item into the Venture compound with this metal detector standing before him. It's fucking awesome. And then it goes to Orpheus, who sets down a weed whacker, and Rusty's like, so just the weed whacker then? Do you have amnesia? I purchased this weed whacker from you because I loaned it to you a month ago. You must return. I expected you to return it. And Rusty's like, keep it down. Like, sorry, you said you'd return it. I get like that. You want me to help you with this? I'm a people person. Alright, but none of that step right up crap. Okay. It's interesting to hear how Orpheus's K, in my opinion, always made me feel like he definitely was thinking about doing something like that. And he was really interested in just doing like, step right up, right here, let's do a sale. Or something of that nature, because Orpheus is weird. And then it goes back to Monarch talking to 21 and 24 about how they have a list and the money to go buy the items that they need and to be back by the Monarch Mobile by 10. He also, as he's saying this, you see a few villains and others pass her by, which one of the notable ones I'd like to point out is Kim Jong-il, which is an interesting little tidbit from seeing the leader of Korea in this super villain grouping. The times. And 21's like, your best men are on the job, don't worry. I'm like, oh yeah? 21? Your barn door is open. Has to zip his pants up. And as the henchmen walk away, Monarch's like, I haven't been in this good mood for a long time. And Dr. Girlfriend even is like, yeah, you seem really good, and it's odd that we're just having a great time right now, and I thought Brock Sampson was gonna straight up murderize us, but he's just a little pussycat. And then they see Hank and Dean and complain about a cash bar, but then when they go to Hank and Dean, they're just a lemonade stand with a hoagie, giant hoagies rather. So, is it cash bar if it's a lemonade stand? Like, I thought it'd have to be a fucking bar. Like, it has to serve alcohol. I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Maybe, I guess, if I went to a wedding and they only sold sodas, but they sold sodas rather than give me sodas, that would be a cash bar rather than if it just gave it to me. Huh. Never thought about it, honestly. So Hank and Dean, Hank specifically, is going off about how we need to sell lemonade and how we're going to make this Hank Co. company and we're going to make money. Dean sees Triana, is like, I gotta go talk to her, and Hank's like, whoa, bro, you can't just leave. And fucking and Dean's like, no, I gotta go. And Hank's like, all right. Union says you get another 10-minute break, and I can't afford another strike. The hell is Hank? Have you done this before or something? Or you just already imagined a backstory for your Hank company? And so Dean leaves, and he calls up Helper, and Helper's like, alright, and it's in the uniform, and he gives him the hat, and he's like, alright, we're gonna work together, you and me. And as Dean's leaving, he's with Helper, and he's like, I'm not afraid to admit it, Helper. I'm proud of him. Hank's such a fun character. Also, Helper's an interesting character here. It then goes to Billy and White talking to Dr. Girlfriend, and Dr. Girlfriend essentially refusing their request to be-arch her, because she's flattered, but she is with Monarch, and they're arching Dr. Venture. Billy and White then go off about Venture, about how he peaked too early and how he's been a joke since he was 16, which is intense and kind of odd for Billy to say, considering how much he admires Dr. Venture, as later episodes portray him as. But I guess because he's trying to coerce this girl into becoming their villain, he was willing to throw him under the bus, which, fair enough. And then they start talking about themselves, actually, and how they can be really good enemies to fight. How Billy was born with way too much cerebral liquid in his brain, and his mother called him her little water baby. And then they go off about how White's an albino, which I think is the first time they actually say he's an albino, although he obviously looked like one. And because he's an albino, they are like, hey, you can, like, kill him with fire or something. Be the flame lady or some kind of crazy shit like that. And it's interesting because then you can tell it misses them. I mean, Dr. Girlfriend's really, like, flattered and, like, oh, these cute guys trying to get their first arch, basically. Then we go to Dean, who's running by Triana and kind of stops himself as he runs by her because he apparently doesn't know how to stop. And then it's like, oh, fancy meeting you here kind of shit. Even though it's a fucking compound, guys. You live in the same area, Dean. You really need to understand that. And so Triana, though, this is actually one of the few episodes that Triana, in my opinion, contributes quite a bit to. Other than There's like one other episode in the season 2 that I can think of. About how like she found these giant grandma thunder panties and how she bought them. Why did she buy them? What is she planning to do with these giant grandma thunder panties? And then Dean's like dying from exhaustion because apparently he doesn't know how he has so much inability to run, even though he assumably runs a lot in his life, you would think. But for whatever reason, he doesn't have any kind of stamina at all, even with that kind of lifestyle. And Triana's like, you want to get some lemonade? And Dean's like, no, not lemonade. Please, God, no. We then have Orpheus, who's showing off, basically, by magically trying to put some shit in a bag. And Rusty's like, stop showing off. And Orpheus goes off about how he's basically jealous of Rusty's arch rivals, basically. How he has tons of arch villainy, and how it seems really fun and interesting to have a costume nemesis. And Rusty's essentially like, dude, just take one of mine. Like, I got plenty. Go for it. Then it goes to Brock, who's walking by, inspecting places. You can see Dr. Impossible with his stretched out arm doing some shit, and that lizard guy who's, I think, on the villain side doing some random crap. And then Monarch runs into him, and then Brock just keeps kind of walking away and just doesn't even give a fuck. And Monarch complains about his contact lenses being missing, and then Dr. Girlfriend comes up and he's like, ha, I told you I could do it. Like, no, I said he had to help you pick them up. You so owe me $5. And then Monarch goes off about, hey, we should move the Monarch mobile to screw with the henchman's head. But then they also then go off about, like, that hoagie went right through me, which I never thought about. That implies that Monarch went over to Hank and Dean and bought a fucking hoagie from them. Anyways, he has to go make a deposit at the bank, as so to speak. Gotta go take a dump. Then, after he says that, Orpheus walks up, fucking slaps him in the face, like Monarch in the face, slaps Monarch in the face, sets his shoes on fire, and then gives him his car and is like, Dr. Orpheus did this. You can arch me at any time, nights only. And then a ghost guy, I forget his name, I think it's in Phantom Intangible or some shit, we'll learn it later, comes up there and is like, when the moon sleeps, the wolves begin to howl. And Monarch like, so? Did someone put a sign on my back? What the hell is going on? So funny. A brilliant showing of their, like, a random joke that had been set up utilizing Rusty and Orpheus earlier, and it's just so perfect. And it's funny that because Orpheus chooses Monarch, there is no way he would get a arch villain from him. Like, it's not like Monarch's gonna change who he hates. It's kind of the core of his character. And then it goes after a commercial, and I assume it goes to Rusty with Billy and White, and Billy and White are purchasing some stuff: a Santa windsock, a tiger shirt, and fucking the Shrink Ray. And the Shrink Ray apparently runs on 2 AA batteries. And Billy and White complain about how the Shrink Ray has like a littler Shrink Ray as the logo on the Shrink Ray, and how that's kind of dumb, which is a little weird. And they go off about how, like, maybe you've had a silhouette of a man shrinking into a smaller man. And Rusty's like, if you don't like it, it's a decal. You can scrape it off. And then Billy and White argue about whether or not they really want it, the Shrink Ray, and how they can kind of hear something jiggling in there. And in the end, Billy's like, loan me $1 million. And White, straight up, I think he says $1 million. It runs on AA batteries and superheated phosphates, specifically. So you can't just have batteries and run a Shrink Ray. Damn. Okay, Billy asks him to loan him $50,000, not $1 million. I was like thinking that, like, no, there's no way that they go up that much money. But Rusty obviously makes a fat stack from this. And then Rusty says that no one gets the Shrink Ray, but assumably based on later episodes, he does sell it to them. Because, I mean, he has to get money, and it is like $50,000. And then goes to Monarch, who is in the porta potty trying to take a dump. And then has Phantom Limb. This is the first introduction of Phantom Limb, who will be, I will just spoil it, he's an integral part of the series later. He walks up and talks to Dr. Girlfriend, and essentially talks about how he thinks that she stopped working with Monarch, and she's like, that's obviously a lie, and how Phantom Limb thinks that the Doctor could turn the world of supervillainy on its head if she just tried. And how basically she is much better than she tries to be. And Dr. Girlfriend essentially is like, I don't care, I prefer where I am, and I'm really happy working with the Monarch. And so she pushes Phantom Limb away and made him leave. As he's leaving, Monarch kind of comes out of the porta potty and is like, is that Phantom Limb? Didn't you work with him or something? And she's like, I never met him. He's an ass. Which is weird considering literally we're going to have in a couple episodes. It's strange. It talks about how Phantom Limb and her obviously knew each other. More than... And Monarch knew that they knew each other. That's the part that doesn't make sense. Monarch being like, didn't you like work with him or something? And it's like, you would know. You have to know. Unless he just doesn't remember. Granted, it has to have been a few years since the shit that goes down. And the reality is that it's just not been written yet. Like, in all technicality, it's just a continuity error that happened because they had not really fleshed out who the hell they had just introduced as Phantom Limb. Which is interesting because they fucking introduced him. They obviously had a plan when they were in regards to just bringing him in. Unless they didn't, and they just wanted to fucking foreshadow how great Dr. Girlfriend is. It's uncertain there. Goes back to Dean and Hank, and they're selling hoagies, and fucking Hank goes off on Dean about how, why didn't you push the lemonade? And he points to the hoagie, and he's like, you know what that is? A big grinder? A hoagie? Close. No. That's there so that people can spend a dollar on a nickel's worth of sugar water. And it's basically, and I get it, it's like you're just making shitty-ass powdered lemonade to sell to people, and you can sell it for fuck tons. And I mean fuck tons of money. It is incredible how much profit you can make from just selling freaking lemonade at an event like that. Which, I mean, it makes sense. There's no other place to get drinks in that entire facility. Hank's a genius in choosing to be the food and beverage place. For there are new food and beverage, like, fucking stalls, basically, at this time. We then go back to Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend, which Monarch had mentioned how he needs a real toilet. So they're looking at the gates to get inside the building, and they realize they need to make some kind of diversion or something. And Dr. Girlfriend kind of is trying to figure it out, but then Monarch figures out how to do it. He uses the wristband that he, by the way, pickpocketed off some guy back, and shoots a little pebble at Underbite's head, which causes him to kick this one dude's ass. And the one dude he kicks, I think, is a character for later in the series, dude named St. Cloud, but it's never confirmed, but it really does look like him. And because he's a character that's utilized later as a connection to Rusty, it honestly fits. But anyways, we have Monarch does that, and a fight breaks out, essentially. Fucking, you see a bunch of all the different villains and superheroes doing stuff. Dr. Impossible gets hit by Underbite. You see Phantom Limb trip some people with his freaking invisible limbs. The Phantom Intangible guy apparently used the merchandise to melt one dude, and that one dude wants to press charges, he mentions. And it's interesting just to see like a little bit of the interactions of this entire situation. And Monarch also had mentioned before he does his actions that this is a powder keg. A bunch of supervillains and superheroes all together. It's obviously a fucking crackerjack place to make a villain a battlefield, which he does. It's easy. We then see 21 and 24, and 24 is like, you can't spend all the boss's money on that, but 21, who has a lightsaber, or at least what looks like to be a lightsaber in his hand, is like, dude, I cannot believe you are telling me this. I'm gonna cry. I've been dreaming of this since I was 3. And Rusty goes off about how like it's a prototype and how the army doesn't sword fight anymore, so they didn't want it, and how Disney doesn't want it because they couldn't deal with it because it's a toy that's $1 million in parts, wouldn't work. And so 21 buys it, and he's like, I'm gonna wear it. Ow. And so he takes it away from him. And then Orpheus shows up and is like, Bedlam has broken out to thwart the Kingdom of Venture. We have to fight back to back, neighbor. And Rusty's like, oh god, Brock will never let me hear the end of this. And we're not going to fight back to anything. I'm going inside where it's safe. Oh, of course, neighbor. Protect the homestead. I will fight it for us. And then it has Monarch kind of... He talks about he's not going to flush because he's in Rusty's bedroom and Rusty's bathroom. And he talks about how, like, he doesn't really know what to do, even though he's in the heart of the beast, basically. And then there's nothing really he can do to this guy that failure in the life has already done to him. And now Mrs. the Monarch, or Dr. Girlfriend, kind of goes into, like, maybe we should discuss our future and kind of shit. It then cuts to Dean and Hank, who are, like, building walls or boarding up the Hank Co's lemonade area. And Dean's like, you're going to get us all killed. And so he runs away, but he's the first to run away. This is what's key about this, actually. And because he runs away first, then Triana and Helper are like, we're outie. But then later on, as Hank's talking to Dean about running away, Hank's like, Dean, you fucked up, man. You ran away early and left Triana out there alone, basically. Rusty points out that her dad's out there, so don't worry about it. But Hank's not wrong. Also, Hanko will rebuild. It then shows our Orpheus. He's fucking shooting laser beams and shit at all the different villains and people, and is basically like, yeah, that was done by Dr. Orpheus. Come get Dr. Orpheus. Next time you may want to attack and fight Dr. Orpheus. Great play. Then we have 21 walking up to Brock, and he with his lightsaber, and 24 is like, oh, I'm gonna help you, but he is like, no, my young Padawan, this one is mine. So 21 draws his lightsaber, goes up there to attack. Unfortunately, the lightsaber does not actually cut through anyone. 21 has been gypped. And then Brock does this whole thing where he gets up close to his face and goes, boo, and makes him disappear, just run. And they're like, we're so gonna pop me. This is an important part for like a later scene in the series. Anyways. They then realize there's someone, Rusty and then Dean and Hank realize there's someone in the lab. So they call Brock to go deal with it, basically. And then Monarch's in the lab, kind of lamenting about what are you going to do with that life hasn't already done to Rusty, even more so. And then Dr. Girlfriend's like, a lot has changed. I wanted to talk to you about us. And then Monarch's like, oh no, get down. And then he shoots all those agents. Like, straight up, I never realized the 5 agents he shoots, and I think he kills, are all agents that we knew and seen. Like the black guy at the beginning of the episode. All these 5 different agents get wiped out right there. And then Monarch goes into a really crazy-ass speech about, with every fiber of my being, I stab at thee. He, like, does, like, the Khan speech, and he fuses it with another villain speech that I don't know, but I do know, because it's, like, parodied all the time. And Dr. Girlfriend looks all like, what the hell's going on, as Monarch finishes his speech, and Hank and Dean are even like, oh my god, he's just doing a speech. And then they do as a whole, like, shoots up a thing into the air and floats up in the air with with Dr. Girlfriend, who is like, ah, and does the whole princess like, ah. So funny. And then it goes into the outro, which, by the way, every outro has, like, in the credits, a little blip of one of the favorite quotes from the episode, which this one was Little Water Baby. Great quote. And the ending scene is everyone, like, putting everything away, basically. They're putting down the yard sale stuff. Brock's throwing away some dead bodies that he had killed, and they're all cleaning up some blood. As they leave from cleaning up the blood, though, you see Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend have not left the lab, but they're like, okay, they're finishing up. Let's go home. Oh, man. In conclusion for this episode, freaking brilliant. Top-notch, 10 out of 10, fantastic episode. I cannot even begin to explain how much I really do enjoy this episode in particular. And really, really, really recommend it. Like, even if you're just, like, watching sporadic episodes of Adventure and you're really uncertain about season 1, for instance, if you started here, you would get pretty much all the information you need for the rest of the series. And I would really recommend this series. Truly, again, I can never stress enough how much you should watch this. Even with me kind of recapping it, even with me saying the jokes, they're just not as brilliant as they were when they're executed in the animated form of Ventura Brothers. I would highly recommend this show, though. Sorry for the random accent. Anyways, please like, comment, and subscribe if you are on YouTube. Catch me on any place you would find podcasts and stuff like that, because this is like an episode review podcast kind of series kind of thing. As I said in conclusion, this episode's amazing. I would just one of the things I would say is that it's like the accumulation of everything they've been building. It uses all the characters that they had used up to this point, or introduced up to this point. Even Dr. Impossible is in the background being used, as well as Underbite, Monarch, and Orpheus, and freaking Billy and White. Like, the only one I can think of that's not actually participating is Captain from the Garza Sargassum episode, but that's because there's reasons for that, basically. Where this really uses all those characters. Brock's used really well, even though I would say he has almost the least amount of lines. You should see how much Rusty doesn't care about selling off his dad's old things, and how much he's financially stressed. How much he is kind of shitty in terms of his life, the way Monarch basically analyzes him. You get Phantom Limb's introduction, which is really important. The foreshadowing of just how great Dr. Girlfriend is. The Billy's talking of his backstory and what he is, and the confirmation that White's an albino. There's just so many things in this episode that are really important for the greater story that you wouldn't expect in an episode that is really just comedic in its premise. So, I thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys have a good day. Supreme Fuzzler. This was Fuzzlercast. Goodbye.